All right, so let's hop into examples of what you can expect in a day in the life of a Salesforce administrator. What I'm going to show you are actual emails that I've received over the past month that'll just show you a generic breakdown of the types of things you can expect to see in the real world. You're going to notice that sometimes people don't lay it out just like a trailhead question, right? Or an exam question. Some users are going to ask you to do things and they don't know exactly the lingo that Salesforce uses or exactly what they're talking about, but you are expected to dissect the information from the emails, ask the questions that you need, and make the updates in the system based on what needs to be done. So let's go ahead and jump in. So the first topic, we're going to start easing into this, user setups. So you'll see some of these little blue blocker blocks that I've put in, and they are to protect somewhat sensitive information. I don't think there's anything major in here, but of course I want to protect the information in the system. So the first one here, we have a user who has decided not to start with us. Please remove him from the system. Simple enough. You're deactivating that user record in Salesforce. The second one here, the user is no longer with the company. That's another situation where you need to deactivate the user in Salesforce. Now, there may be situations where deactivating someone means that you need to go transfer their records, their accounts, their contacts, their opportunities to someone else. So you have to keep in mind what the company needs and what records that person might own so that you can transfer those over. But for the most part, you are deactivating their user record to make sure they cannot get into Salesforce anymore. The third one we have here is it seems as if John is set up twice in Salesforce. The active account is the one with this email address. The other account can be removed. It's causing issues. So I'm not going to read through every single thing in this entire deck, but the point is there are some different issues. You know, maybe I think in this scenario, actually, John used to be an employee of the company 2 or 3 years ago. He came back and is now an employee again. He was rehired. And so now we have his user set up twice when we should have gone back to his old user and reactivated that and made updates. However, if you aren't the current admin at the company, when that person was around 2 or 3 years ago, there's no way you're going to know that they should already exist and to reactivate them. So there are some interesting things here. And in this specific situation, this account is connected to Pardot. So that means the Pardot user was already created. That had to be removed. And there are some other things. So you have to think about what happens when a user is created and how can you simply just deactivate the one, or are there other things that you need to do? So we'll move into another somewhat simple topic, user permissions. So the first example here is, hey, Brad, when someone looks at the case view named queues list, he sees the list, however, it's empty. He's moving to support from a coach role, but he has not moved roles yet, so I opened him up to the role. What needs to be adjusted for him to see cases in the view? This could be a number of things. And you can see how the wording does not come across just like you would see on a Salesforce exam. This is somewhat different. This is the real world. So you're going to the queue list. You're checking out what are the parameters? Is it sharing on the list? No, he already has access to the list. He can't see what's in it. Is it sharing that he doesn't have access to certain cases, maybe in the sharing settings? And you're doing that troubleshooting to figure out what it is that's causing this person not to be able to see this. And this actual request, I remember it, was a bit of a mind bend. And it turns out that one of the filters in the list view was using a field that this person did not have access to that field on their profile. So therefore, the filter does not apply, and it wasn't showing any records because of that. So there are some little twists in there. You're going to learn those as you go. Don't let that turn you away. You're never going to know every little thing. It takes troubleshooting and working through problems. All right, the next one is I want to be able to run a report on a specific type of contact, but it only gives me the option to do it with my contacts. I can't pull all contacts. Are you able to provide access? So this could have to do with a number of things. It could have to do, again, with sharing settings or their profile permissions, or do they only have access to their own contacts? Maybe it's a private sharing model, and they need to have access to more contacts. And of course, these are the types of permissions you have to be careful with. Is this person at a authority level to request access to everything in the system from a contact perspective? Or Do you need to go to a manager or some other person to make sure that this person can get the access they want? And then you have to determine, do we put them in a public group and open up sharing for a specific individual? Do we give them a permission set to give them specific access? Or is it a profile-wide, access that needs to be given? Or is this potentially simply just an issue with teaching someone how to use a report properly? So there are a number of things that can be the answer to any given question, and you have to know your company well enough to know how to do the right thing. So the next topic is ongoing training and explaining. You are always going to be training users. They may come in and you may be doing a 1 or 2 hour training session for new users, but that doesn't mean you're done. They are going to continue to have questions. You're going to continue to make updates in Salesforce, and you're going to have to continue training and explaining. So for the first one, they said, for your information, below is a Salesforce profile for a lead. What he actually means is this is a lead record that was sent to me and now has become a commercial prospect. Can you please advise how I may change this one to a commercial prospect? I don't see the button on the profile. I expect it's because it is still in lead status, and he simply means that it is still a lead record, and I don't know how to change it. So this is all about, this specific item was, this person was used to working with contact records, and there is a button on the contact record that he can click to convert it over to a commercial prospect. He wasn't seeing that. He was confused about what was happening. All that we had to do was convert that lead to a contact to get through this problem. But you would have to know their processes and understand the individual users. And that takes time. You're not going to know that on day 1 or probably on day 60 of working at a company. But once you've been there for 3 months, 6 months, a full year, you are going to wrap your head around their processes and know the roles of the users so that you can help each individual with what they need. So the second one here is, hey, Bradley, I'm working through a list in leads and I want to send out a mass email. I clicked on the send list email, but when it pulls up, there's no icon to add a template. Do you know how I could get that add-on? Because I need it to auto-populate everyone's name in it. So this is another training situation, just showing people how to create their own email templates from the mass send. Or this could be a situation where you say, hey, what kind of email are you trying to send? Because I may need to create a template for everyone to use if it's something that everyone needs to be sending as a template. So these are great opportunities for you to train someone on how to create their own templates, or to do what's right for the entire company and maybe create a template for everyone to use. Another thing is simple data cleanup. Now, there is very intensive data cleanup that may be part of an administration role. However, these are very basic data cleanup items. So the first one is, I received a call from Mark, and when looking up his number, I found there were duplicates. Can you please merge the two and put them in this individual's name, please? So they sent me a link to the main the record and then the duplicate record so that I can merge them. So there are standard merge functions within Salesforce, and a lot of times users get confused and they don't know why there are duplicates. Now you can assign the ability for people to merge records themselves, but in some orgs you want to go ahead and maintain control to make sure that it is truly a duplicate, that it is what they think it is, double check it, and then merge the record yourself. The next one is, can you please reallocate a person who's left VIPs, which are cases in this case, among the 4 new coaches, which are the people who work the cases. So it's saying, can you please reallocate someone who's left cases over to the other 4 caseworkers? And they have a list of the caseworkers down below. And so what you have to do is you can decide how this works, right? If it's 10 cases, you can probably just go swap the owner on them over to these 4 people. And what this means when they say 4 people is it's sort of like a round robin. If there are 8 cases, each person would get 2. If there are 12, each person would get 3. But imagine this were 100 cases being worked by someone. You don't want to go through and click through 100 cases. So this could be the chance to create a list view and move things over in mass, or even export data to Excel from a report, make updates to who the owner is, and then reinsert that through Data Loader or Data Loader IO or a tool like that. Reporting. So reporting is going to come up a lot because it is very complicated for end users a lot of times, especially when they don't understand the data. So the first one here is, hey, Brad, Will you please check the calculations for the return percentage column on a given report? When I do the math manually using the amounts on the report, I get different answers for all of the months. Am I missing something? And so I remember this one, the person was not missing anything. The formula on the report was actually slightly wrong and had to be adjusted. So this is another troubleshooting situation, and people are very confused by reports. So expect to get a lot of reporting questions. Here's another one. Do you mind looking at the total return opportunity amount, absolute value, column in the below report in Salesforce? It looks like it's duplicating the return amount. For example, this customer has a sendback for May. The sendback is 1,600, but the report shows 3,200. What's going on there? So clearly there was some duplication. Some things were duplicating where they didn't need to be. And you have to jump in and go through the report filters, make sure you're using the right report type, make sure any formulas that are being used are accurate, and go in and make those adjustments. So reporting is going to be a big one in any admin role. Automation issues. So when we talk about automations, those could be workflows. If you're using sort of an older instance of Salesforce, those are typically process builders. These could be even flows if you use those. And if you have a developer on the team, they might have created some triggers that made some automations, and you still need to be ready to field questions and at least send things over to the developer when the time comes. So you can see a few examples here. I adjusted an opportunity on this account that was formerly an exchange. What is triggering that exchange flag? How am I able to remove it? And then you have to go through the automations and figure out what is it that causes a particular flag to be checked. A term for checkbox is sometimes called a flag, if you don't know that. So there's a flag that's checked, a checkbox is checked. How do I uncheck it? Because sometimes a lot of those automations are editing fields that are not editable on the page layout. So you have to go figure out what it is that's causing the box to be checked and then make adjustments to that. The next one is, good morning, we had a partial payment yesterday. We are processing it this morning. In the past, this very specific email template used to autofill in the amount based on the partial payment section. It's not doing that now. Is there a way we can update that template? So you have to go check and see what numbers are coming into that template. If it's using formulas from within Salesforce, are these part of automations where those numbers are getting automatically updated? And is the email template still referencing the proper fields based on any current projects you're working on or any major updates you're making to the system? So there's a lot of things you have to consider. And every scenario can have, again, a number of answers, but these are just a few examples. The last one here is Brad. Hey, yesterday evening, I had 2 opportunities that failed to create. Here was the error that was given. I can't save the record because the opportunity creation update process failed. And then they give the error here. So it looks like in this one, if you've used process builders, you'll get used to seeing these, basically these email kickbacks that the users will get. And I know that is the opportunity creation update process builder. It failed for some reason, looks like a validation rule. And the error message of that rule is if you push the close date back, you must supply a reason. In this case, I'm going to go check out that validation rule and make sure that it's set up correctly. And in this case, I may just be going back to this individual and saying, hey, it looks like you're trying to create records that are not valid. Make sure you check the close date, make sure it's an actual reasonable close date, and then the opportunity should create with no problem. So compliance, you may or may not get into this, but if you do a lot of emailing or a lot of phone calling, you're going to get into CASL and GDPR compliance. And what that is effectively, you've got CASL, Canadian anti-spam laws, in place that keep you from spam emailing and calling individuals who you do not have their consent to call them. The same goes for GDPR now, which I forget what that acronym stands for, but it's effectively European countries who follow a lot of similar and same compliance laws from CASL. So you can see these are a couple of examples. I won't dive into these, but if your company deals with compliance for any reason, it could be CASL, it could be healthcare, it could be financial compliance, you are going to have to deal with making sure Salesforce is configured in a way that deals with these compliance situations. So you can read through these, pause the video, read through them, and get a feel for that. But it is very important, and especially the legal team is going to be on top of you to make sure that the data in Salesforce, if people are automatically dialing records, if systems are automatically emailing individuals, you need to have suppressions in place that keep those individuals from calling on records that are not compliant with CASL and GDPR, as well as other situations. Third-party tools. So this is a big one. Everything you've studied in Trailhead to get your admin certifications and your platform app builder and all these other certifications, you are never going to have seen third-party tools, not in a deep dive way. So the first one here is Pardot. And Pardot is technically owned by Salesforce, and it's a marketing automation platform. However, if you don't have your Pardot certification or you haven't seen Pardot much, you're going to have no idea what's going on. However, the company in many times is going to expect you to learn and grow with them and solve issues that you may not have seen before. So this one, for instance, is an email blast that went out, and a lot of the people came back with a hard bounce, which means that the server kicked back and said, hey, you sent an email to all these people, but we have a whole list of them that basically marked you, came back as not being valid email addresses. And then they're coming to me, even though I'm the Salesforce admin, and saying, have you seen this before? Do you have any insight? And of course you can say, no, I don't have any insight. But the best thing you can do to make yourself more useful to the company is try to do some research, maybe even reach out and open a case with Salesforce and try to figure out what's going on there. The next one is, I don't see these numbers. So this was for a month to date and week to date revenue report that they wanted to see in a third-party tool called Hoopla, which is a gamification tool to help people congratulate each other, compete with each other. It's used a lot of time in sales to help each other see like leaderboards and compete with one another on how much revenue they have for the month and things like that. So again, these are third-party tools that even though you're the Salesforce administrator, you're going to wear a few different hats, and managing these third-party tools is a big part of that. The third one here, I've had several reports that the same leads are showing up day after day on the list. So this is in relation to a power dialer. And if you haven't heard of that, it is a dialing tool that takes a list of leads or contacts, accounts, opportunities, anything with a phone number, and you put them in a big report or a big list, and this thing just dives through the records and calls and calls and calls and calls and calls, and it automatically leaves voicemails. The reps will sit on the phone and they'll hear music while it's calling. A lot of times used in telemarketing companies where they're on the phone all day long. And these tools keep them from having to punch in a phone number or click a phone number. The system is just automatically dialing. So this one says, we had several reports of the same lead showing up over and over on the list. The list has over 100,000 leads on it. We shouldn't be hitting the same person over and over again. I refreshed the list several times. The issue continues. Here's a lead that has been called several times in the past few years. So that is a situation where you have to go in and figure out, why are those leads coming into the list? What's happening there? So the point being on that last one is, there are going to be third-party tools that you're going to have to understand. There are hundreds of third-party tools that your company could use. You're going to have to get used to managing some of those tools and learning how to use them. And then here I say, sometimes you get a little bit of everything. So this was a request where basically somebody had been keeping a list for a period of time, and they decided to just hit me with all of their requests all at once. So you can see it's, add a field on the lead and contact, add a new subject for task, add a fax field on the lead and contact. We need an email opt-out checkbox. We have contacts with particular statuses that need to be put in a couple of different people's names. Remove these fields from the layout, move the address on the layout, make some fields required. Activity history, can this appear on the detail page, not in a separate section? Can we log a call from the detail page? Can we log a call from a list view? Can we override certain fields? Can we force, another checkbox or another text box to come up based on somebody saying other in a field? So you can read through these, but this is a great list of the type of stuff that you should expect to see. And these are the types of things that are going to come up every day when you're working as a Salesforce administrator in these companies. So hopefully that gives you a good overview of what to expect when you're a Salesforce administrator. Please leave a comment. Let me know if this seems aligned with what you see as an administrator in your role. Let me know, if you have any questions about some of the requests that come up and how you would solve for those requests. I'm happy to, respond to your comments. Just let me know what you think. Make sure also to like and subscribe if you're getting value from the video. And if you check down in the description, you can also buy me a coffee if you want to keep me energized so I can keep making videos like this. Thanks a lot.